how exciting this is. I cannot believe that this has worked. Usually I bring on my guests, but my guests are already here. And also, we are not guests. This is collaboration. We are collaborating. My volume is going to get higher and higher in overexcitement for no reason. Okay, welcome to the show. I'm trying to see how I can remove the comments so you guys can be seen a little bit better. Okay, it keeps coming in. Welcome to the show, Adam and Geoff. How's life? How's it going? Let me ask the Indian cliche questions. Do you like India? What is your favorite food? Why is Virat better than Babar Azam? Tell us 19 things you love about MS Dhoni, and please compliment Jay Shah.
Okay, well, MS Dhoni, the crocodile catch. That's what I liked when he started doing the gloves like this. He's like, yeah, sure, every coach in the world will tell you not to do this, but I'm so good, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care.
My recollection last year being in Pakistan for the Australian Test tour there was whenever we were in Karachi or talking about Karachi, it was Lahoris jumping in saying, you've got to try the biryani in Lahore. It's better than here. And the reverse was true there. So your question reminded me of that there is a sense of validation about how good the country is when you visit their city or something like that.
Of course, also our favorite thing about India is Bharat Sundaresan, who's here as well.
Hey, this is the classic, jugad, main laga ke diya na. Yeah, you wouldn't be doing the show without me, so I've also inserted myself into the show.
Listen, Bharat, I don't know what happened yesterday, but in your face, Jared Kimber, because we've got the actual Bharat. Did you have an issue yesterday because I heard there was some issues with Bharat trying to log in and Wi-Fi issues, and people are very concerned that you were going to log in here or no?
No, I've been sick and I've had Wi-Fi issues, so it's been. There is a ongoing rift. There is a storyline building up behind the scenes. We'll meet each other in WrestleMania main event. Don't worry, Jared versus Bharat.
That's awesome. Okay, let's get into. I don't know if you're following the story of the Sting operation. One of the most unnecessary sting operations in the history of mankind. What are your opinions on this story, and do you think there was any point to it?
Oh, I think this is an incredible piece of journalism, right? Like you go back to the News of the World Sting in 2010 with Mohammed Amir and the Pakistani team in England, and then this Sting operation. I mean, they really got to the truth, the rift between Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma, and the answer was, there is no rift, everything's fine. I mean, that's when you really uncovered some gold. That is some explosive revelations right there.
What I liked back was literally the laid-back nature of the presentation. It's like something about Stings and those who are in the centre of it looking very laid-back and casual when they're spoken to. So that was the main takeout from me.
Yeah, I also thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, listen, all three of you are journalists. I'd love to know what you think of a Sting operation in which the journalist is saying, hey, this is off the record, and then recording the whole thing.
I mean, that definitely does violate the fundamental principles of your job, right? Like, that's like when when a doctor is killing people instead of helping them. You're like, there are some very basic things you're not supposed to do. That's one of the basic things you're not supposed to do. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who might say they're journalists, but they don't actually behave like journalists.
Yeah, I think that's part of the barrier of entry to becoming a journalist being lowered. And that's part of the reason why Geoff and I get to do these jobs as well, by the way. I'm not suggesting that we're any different. Like, there's no such thing as going to journalism school anymore quite so much. I mean, there is a journalism school, but the way we came through, it was a trail blazed by. You mentioned Jared before. If not for Jared Kimber and the work he did, 15 years ago, it's improbable that people like Geoff and I would have had the opportunity. So you pick up the rules of combat, if you like, with the people you're working with, who you're meant to be scrutinising, but also, simple things like what does off the record mean? What does on background mean? And that's stuff that you don't get when you read the final print in the newspaper. It's stuff you need to know on the way through.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of it's precedent, it's sort of form. Like there's nothing completely set down in black and white that says it must be this way. It's just that's the precedent of the way things have been done. I mean, of the three of us, Bharat is the one who actually has the claim to be a real journalist because he's actually worked for newspapers for 15, 16 years and knows how it's done. Would you ever wear a hidden microphone like Sopranos style and go into a meeting with an Indian selector to find out whether one player doesn't like another player or not?
I have to say this: most Indian selectors I've dealt with are among the most boring people on the planet. So if someone actually sent me on a sting operation to do, if Ravi Shastri is not involved, I mean, you remember the Tehelka ones, yeah, like the one that Manoj Prabhakar did. I mean, he set the bar so high. Unless you're like walking into Indian cricketers dressing out living rooms and Ravi Shastri is not playing music and dancing around like he did in that thing, I don't think you can call this a sting operation. I'm very, very sorry. It's among the more boring sting operations I've come across.
Well, for those of you who are catching up who have no idea what happened, there was a sting operation done by WION News where the journalist basically asked Chetan Sharma a question about the most pertinent question, which had already been settled probably a year back. Like, you know what? Rohit and Virat have finally decided to forget all about it. They all are happy. This is a relationship that had some rocky road at some point. They've gone through therapy, they've gone through couples counseling, and then there's somebody who's the neighbor who's just popping and saying, "Are you guys okay? Why aren't you guys okay?" It's just ruining the whole. Like, this is terrible preparation for India prior to the second test. This is like highly unnecessary journalism. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the point of this. Like, what it's going to reveal at the end of the day. So yeah.
Well, maybe, I mean, we spend so much of our lives just watching cricketers do training. Maybe the journalists need to do more sting training at the same time.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, and work out how to put together a better sting. Like, who are you stinging? How are you stinging them? You're like, it's like a bee that forgot to actually pack the. There's the sting without the sting.
Yeah, it's more like a housefly sting. Okay, I'm going to take a few questions and general comments. Just also everybody watching, please do give a like and subscribe to both the channels. Final Word Cricket as well. They're doing a lot of things. It's a lot of fun stuff from Nagpur as well in a mini stadium as well. And follow here because a lot of old clips, etc. with the Harsha Bhogle and a bunch of other people. Robin Uthappa keeps popping whenever he has made enough money to donate some time to me. So give a like because the algorithms work that way. The more comments, the more likes you give to this thing, the more it works. I'll read out a few comments that have popped in. The covert Indian has said, very shocking revelation that Hardik Pandya slept on Chetan Sharma's sofa. I don't know.
We could have him here. Check out this sofa. This is a beautiful leather sofa, the place that we're staying in Delhi, which it seems to be owned by a gentleman of taste, judging by the furnishings and the artworks and so on. So I mean, this is a very comfortable sofa. Hardik Pandya would be very happy sleeping on this one.
Yes, positively palatial. We have the orange feature wall as well. So he's got an eye for style too. The bloke who owns this place, I love it.
Oh yeah, and we have a couple of there's a couple of comments coming from Bharat. The ex-hamster says, "How come Bharat has so much hair on his head and none on his legs?"
Well, I can tell you, I'm sitting next to him. There's quite a bit down there on the calf. I mean, maybe it's just a trick of the camera. You know how they say the camera adds 10 pounds. Maybe it takes away some of the, but actually there's quite a bit there. You just it's just not showing up.
Yeah.
Well, you're the reverse of me. So this is my scene. I have more here and less here. So I think I think we can. Anyway, we are talking about the topic of cricket, which is very important to talk about hair.
But if we combine the two of you, Sorabh, if we put you and Bharat together in a blender, and then you would come out with one completely hairless person and one completely like one of those cats, those nude cats. And then the other one would be like the abominable snowman. It'd be beautiful.
I've never heard a Siamese cat be called a nude cat before, but I accept it.
Like the one that Dr. Evil has in Austin Powers. He's completely. I mean, they're weird. They look like testicles, but I find them very unsettling. But some people like them.
Yeah. It's quite disgusting. Okay, I gotta get your opinion on a bunch of things that have been happening. Many conspiracies doing the rounds. I know Bharat keeps spying on everybody. I don't know if you guys also spy on cricketers from the back. Like Bharat is like one of those people who's discovered a telescope and he can see right to Saturn and he will not stop looking at Saturn when he's seeing all these people. So I'd love to know this conspiracy which has happened about the Nagpur pitch. So the Australians are requested a day 4 practice on the Nagpur pitch and they were apparently denied the rights. So what do you think? Are the rights of Aussies being denied in Indian soil?
This was great. I love this one. So Andrew McDonald was speaking to us the Australian coach, the morning after the 3-day finish. And he was saying, well, look, it's going to be a great opportunity today to practice on a day 4 pitch. And we were looking at each other, the assembled journos, like, oh, Is someone going to tell him? And then after the press conference, a couple of our colleagues went up to Andrew and said, sorry, mate, you're not going to be training on the day 4 pitch because after you left the ground yesterday, they watered it. So they did seek permission, as he explained to us, to practice on that surface. And whether it was conspiracy or otherwise, what certainly happened was after receiving that opportunity to practice on day 4 there, the pitch did get watered, so they had to cancel their training. They did train on the ground on day 5, or what would have been day 5, but that was on a surface about 3 over that definitely wasn't the test pitch. So again, it could have been, usually where the expression goes, when it's conspiracy or cock up, it's almost always cock up. On this one, who's to know? I think it's an open-ended question.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been anybody involved. It could, like, you live in India. You know that sometimes the chains of communication are not always perfect. You know that sometimes people say they will do a thing that does not necessarily happen, or people say they will not do a thing that then ends up happening. Like, this is not new. This is not a thrilling new occurrence. But Bharat has been spying on everybody because Rohit Sharma bailed him up today at the stadium. And what did he say to you?
Well, I mean, he bailed me up after the first test. He said, Bharat, we have put 2 security guards. No more pitch pictures for you. I said, chalo, dekhte hain. The poor guy came to me today. He said, I'm sure you did not take any pictures. It's subah ki gaya. He said, what do you mean we kept it covered? I said, they covered it now. I've been here since 8 in the morning. So I haven't tweeted any picture up. I've been called anti-Indian enough. Like, Sorabh, I'm in a place here where I go to Australia. Some people say, go back to where you came from. Abhi India mein they're saying, go back to where you came from. I have nowhere to go. Yeah, no country wants me anymore.
Singapore, I think it would be right in the middle.
Becoming an Australian national treasure, I should say. He's extremely popular in Australia. So I get why there might be an extra layer of sensitivity. I actually did tweet a picture of the pitch out. I was talking to Bharat this morning saying, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And I did. About 4 hours later after the sting went out of it, and I didn't even reflect on the surface itself. So you can see what the pitch is going to look like in 2 days' time from afar, which it's always risky business. Right? Like I've learned over the years that the way a pitch looks 2 days out often has no correlation to how it'll play on days 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So the fact that Bharat's picture went up before the Nagpur Test match and became an international incident reflects the amount of animosity there is between these, I guess, not the nations, but the rivalry might be a better way of putting it. That is why that blew up. It wasn't because of the picture, despite the fact that he was copying abuse whenever he walked around the ground at Nagpur. I thought that was very unfair. One guy over the boundary line was abusing him, and I turned around and started abusing the guy back over the top. Don't get stuck into my mate. He's done nothing wrong.
I think it's the war between the fan bases more than the war between the teams, right? Because it's like a way that people, like, if you have a boil and you need to stick a knife in it and let the juice out, like, it's a way for people to express their frustrations. Things are annoying in their lives. The cab is late taking you home. You don't have enough money to get the right shopping or whatever, but you can get online and yell at some guy in Adelaide. You feel better, it's just a way to make you feel better. And so, but it also reflects like how beautifully boring cricket is, because we all get so upset just about the grass on the surface of the match that we haven't even played yet. And we're like, I am furious. I am so angry about this grass. This grass is really making me pissed off. This grass is ruining my week, which isn't usually something you say unless somebody delivers you a bad match.
Yeah. And so, my phone's ringing. My wife. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Bring her in on the show.
Yeah, I know. I would bring her, but she doesn't like coming on the show. But she's calling me from afar. I'm just making sure that my son has logged in. Have you logged in? Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to log my son into this thing and mute myself. Sorry, you can continue with some questions. I'll just mute myself for 2 seconds. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's very important to make sure that the learning opportunities of the next generation come through. So we're looking for some questions here. What do we have here? We have. Well, there's the question. This is a kind of a semi-serious one about Indian cricketers taking injections. What was that stuff that Chetan Sharma was talking about like passing a fitness test by getting an injection? I've never heard of this before.
I have no idea. And the guy kept going back and forth saying, sir, so who are the cricketers who have taken injection? He says 80 to 85% have taken injections. It was just a bizarre part of that. sting, and I don't know what they meant by injections either. Is he saying they were doped, or is he saying they go and get themselves steroids and then pass the fitness test? It was bizarre, that part of the sting operation.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. I mean, maybe it was like one of those cool bars in places in London where they serve you drinks in syringes, that sort of thing. Have you been, like, maybe it was just those sort of injections.
It reminded me of that Al Jazeera documentary a few years ago, which it kind of said, everybody's an Achiksa, and here's proof, because in this game this happened. And it was scrutinised by, it felt to me like that documentary was made by an organisation that knew nothing about cricket, about the rhythms of a test match and that kind of thing. And when it was held to scrutiny, none of it stacked up,
Sure.
and no charges were laid.
Remember the big revelation was Australia batted slowly for 10 overs before the tea break?
Yeah.
I'm like, have you ever watched a test match? Everybody bats slowly for 10 overs before the tea break.
And the other bit about that was, he outed himself as being the person they were implying in the thing, Glenn Maxwell. He said, they were clearly talking about me in it, because they didn't, they blurred out my face, but they didn't blur out my bat or my hairy forearm. So they were clearly trying to say it was me batting. But Maxwell was on his way to his first test century, as if he was going to take any risks. He batted so carefully in that innings and batted so wonderfully and achieved maybe the greatest moment in his international career. Like he was going to compromise that in any way, shape or form. So again, that reminded me of this last night when these revelations came through, that often people talk a big game when they're trying to show off to their mates, and in practice, a lot of it doesn't stack up to scrutiny.
Yeah, and the anonymizing thing is hilarious, where they're like, we can't reveal the name of this player. However, there are only 11 of them in the team. Clearly, it's somebody in the top 6, because you're talking about a bat. Here's some footage of them batting. Oh, they're right-handed, and they use a kookaburra. Oh, good. Okay, well, process elimination means that we can whittle that down pretty quickly. And then, like you said, the pine forest forearms. I mean, people are talking about the hair on Bharat's legs, the hair on Glenn Maxwell's arms. He's genuinely the heir to Ricky Ponting in terms of, like, the thatch between the elbow and the wrist is extraordinary. We've seen it up close. And I mean, there are like a couple of German children who are still lost in there, wandering around, being hunted down by a witch in that hair. It's incredible.
Yeah, Ricky Ponting, I think it was, I met Ricky Ponting once in my life, and it was very surprising to me because he was very nice. And I was like, I was not expecting it. I think there was Anil Kumble, Ricky Ponting, and Shane Bond. And Anil Kumble was very removed, because I think he's so sick of Indians being like, Anil Kumble, 10 wickets, and just getting overexcited. And he was very like, I took wickets. And Ricky Ponting was like, hi, mate, can I help you? What are your questions? And I was like, wait, this is the same guy? What is happening? I'm shocked. So, yeah. And also great hairy arms, yeah.
Were you just expecting to get sledged, as in, get some fucking better questions, mate? What do you call that a question? Come on. What do you got?
I saw a great piece on Twitter the other day, which it was a Valentine's Day thing. It was a book being sold, and on the cover it said, "Get ready for a broken heart." And a good tweeter wrote back to it, "Is this Australian sledging under Pat Cummins?" Like it was under Michael Clark. "Get ready for a broken fucking arm under Pat Cummins. Get ready for a broken heart."
I think this is what Alan Border has been saying, that Aussie cricketers currently are very soft, and. I you know what, I just like the idea of the assumption that every generation before is hard and the current generation is soft, just because they're friends, because they're friends with each other.
Yeah, but it wouldn't matter. I mean, there is an element of the Indian Premier League, meaning a lot of these players do know each other quite well. Like take David Warner, for example. He'd know a number of the Indian players better than he knows his own teammates playing for Australia, and that's great and lovely. But you step back from it, you're right. Alan Border and his criticism the other day, they're not going hard enough, is exactly the same criticism you see of any Australian side in any sport whenever they're not performing well. Yeah. It's like this. A colleague from the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, Dan Brettig, wrote about this today, saying it's as though in our national character, we believe the only way that we can succeed is with aggression, not skill. Like we've got this chip on our shoulder about aggression, and it usually comes from those that came before. I'm sure when Alan Border's side were doing poorly through the early 80s, there were members of the 70s side saying, "Oh, that Alan Border is not going in fucking hard enough." Like it's a generational rite of passage to claim that the generation after you didn't have sufficiently hard enough dicks when they were batting.
Yeah. Alan Border, total soft cock. Oh, Alan, nah. And it's true, right? That they base this entirely on results, which makes no sense. Like this isn't a rugby grand final where it's about who smashes who harder. Like a ball gets bowled. you play the wrong line, you miss a straight ball because you're expecting it to turn and you're LBW. How is that soft? Like, that does not relate to softness or hardness in any way. It's a skill matter. It's an error of skill. Now, if someone's bowling short at you and you're backing away to square leg and trying to hide from the ball, then yeah, you can say that that's a player being soft. If you miss a ball while a spinner is bowling to you, there is no test of courage involved with that. It's a matter of like keeping your composure under pressure and trying to play the right shot. But that's a skill error. That's like saying a player who plays billiards and misses a shot is soft. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's completely nonsensical, but it's this one go-to answer that all of these guys will go back to time and again.
And I'll just add one thing, that I reckon it is true to say that Australian teams, at their absolute pomp, and I went back to watch the Nagpur Test match in 2004. There's a highlights clip that's on YouTube, and I thought, I'll watch this just to get a feel for. We were at the old ground, the VCA ground, on Sunday recording an episode of The Final Word, and I wanted to see what it looks like in all its glory. And it is true to say that team were bloody intimidating because they're extraordinarily good at cricket. This side is number one in the world as well, but not number one in the world around the world. They're number one in the world in Australia against middling opposition or poor opposition over the Australian summer. And they have said repeatedly, it's the next 10 test matches. The 4 in India, if they make the World Test Championship final, then the 5 in England, which will define just how good they are. So they're still building. Remember that Pat Cummins only took over, 15, 16 months ago? They're ranked number one in the world, but that's in the absence of another side really commanding that position at the moment. So, yeah, I think we should just give these guys a chance to work out how they're going to play as a team, remembering that a number of them are going to retire in the next 12 months anyway.
I saw a question pop up that said, when does The Miracle Makers by Bharat Sundaresan come out? I hear it's coming out soon.
It is coming out very soon. Thank you for the question. It's coming out as soon as next month. We have a little launch in Delhi on the 22nd and a launch in Mumbai on the 25th, where I'm supposed to wear full pants. So I'm not looking forward to that part, but I'll be there releasing the book. So I look forward to it. And just a couple of things on what these guys are talking about. One thing, Sorabh, is we don't, in Indian cricket, we never talk about cocks, right? Hard cock, soft cock. We know everything about Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli, their neighbors' dog's name, their neighbors' sisters, aunts, nephew's name. But one thing we don't ever talk about is penises of Indian cricketers, which I find very fascinating. In Australia, they know all about everybody's penis. I mean, everyone who's ever played for Australia, there are test cap numbers, and then there's information about their respective penises. And also on the Steve Smith debate, the one thing people don't realize is the thumbs up he keeps giving is not to Jadeja. That's Steve Smith speaking to himself. I know because I've spent half my life watching him do that. So it's just one of those things. But
so listen, I want to get into this conversation about penises for a while. Let's talk about this for 45 minutes. Because
comfortably, this is our national media. We can do this.
Yeah, because I mean, you raised this earlier, but it's like you didn't have hard enough erections while playing cricket. And also 0 stabbings. Like, I can imagine one of the older players saying 0 stabbings on the pitch. You don't want this hard enough. But okay, just at least make the effort to kill Jadeja. He's a swordsman himself. But okay, so here's the question about this penis thing, of Australian cricketers. Is this an actual legit thing that does everybody? I know that people discuss sizes basis, like, hey, what you can make out. Is this a thing?
No, I mean broadly it's like saying that someone brings a butterfly knife onto the pitch and stabs the other player. The information isn't there about everybody, but if they're at the upper end of the scale, then you generally know about it, right? The word gets around as to who is in the club, who is in the club of players who have a club versus the ones who don't.
Okay, by the way, we have a few questions and stuff coming in. People are saying there's lagging issues. I'm running the thing on the side. It's running perfectly fine. And we also have Sugata Mukherjee, who said, did Sorabh just moonwalk into the room? Wait, let me kill a mosquito. Just escaped. I did moonwalk into the room.
Didn't want enough, Sorabh. Not hard enough. Got to have a hard edge when you go after mosquitoes. If you don't, you're wasting your fucking time and you're wasting everyone else's time. You're wasting the mosquitoes' time. You've got to kill
Sorry, I'm giving a thumbs up to the mosquito. You did it, man. All the mosquito makers in the country will be like, he's not trying hard enough. Okay, let's take a few questions that are coming up. Anand Gami says, what are you guys planning for the World Cup? Wow, we've skipped the Border Gavaskar Trophy and shifted straight to the World Cup.
We're already fast forwarding. I mean, I think the idea is we're going to come out. We're going to spend the 7 weeks in India. It's a high degree of difficulty darting around from venue to venue. The way we did in England in 19 was hard enough, and there's no flights required there. So it'll be hard work, but we'll find a way to be out here and do daily programs on the channel, and we'll have Bharat with us as well. So the three of us will find a way to cover the World Cup from India, but how we're going to do it, fuck if I know.
Covering one-day cricket or white ball cricket is a lot more difficult for people like us than covering Test cricket, because we're freelancers. We rely on getting jobs in different places, and that means that we pay for our own costs as well. So we're covering the accommodation, the travel, and all the rest of it. If you do a Test match, you get to a city and you have 6 days of work out of that Test match. Probably you have the preview day, you have, even if you don't have 5 days of play, there'll be a couple of wrap-up days and all the rest of it. And so for one bit of travel, one set of flights or whatever it is, you can get that 6 days, maybe even 7 days of work out of it. If you're doing a one-day tournament, you go somewhere for 2 or 3 days, play the match, travel somewhere else for 2 or 3 days, play the match. And you're only getting that 1 day of work on the match day. And then you've got all of these other days that you have to subsidize in between times. So it's very different to if you write for a newspaper or you work for a TV channel or something and they cover all of the cost, then it doesn't matter that there are some slow days in between the match days. But for us, that makes it much more difficult. So in England in 2019, you can get on a train in London and be just about anywhere in about 2 hours, as long as that train actually leaves, which they do about half the time. So, you've got a 50-50 chance of making it to Manchester or Birmingham or Bristol or whatever it is. But I mean, India is such a huge country that almost everywhere requires a flight. Everywhere is a 12-hour drive to somewhere else. And that's if it's nearby. So, and chances are that, certainly a team like India will play in 9 different venues and move around. A team like Australia will probably play in at least 6 or 7, if not more. So who knows? Yeah, we have to figure out how to do it, but our aim is to be here during the World Cup. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, you've very surreptitiously, that's the word, right? Brought in one of my topics, which surreptitiously, about the Dharamsala ground, right? Because I think a lot of people were tweeting about the fact that they had made plans to go to Dharamsala. People are flying in from Singapore to go to Dharamsala, and at the absolute last minute, like I think somebody put out a photograph of like in December where it was just sand. Listen, I don't know much about horticulture and about gardening, but I assume that grass takes a little longer than 2 months to grow on sand. So I mean,
we know one thing. We know that Alan Border likes playing beach cricket because he made a bunch of money from Forex playing beach cricket. So maybe he should get over here and play on the sand.
Yeah, I mean, it is sad, isn't it? I mean, India, as Bharat keeps saying, with something India, when something goes wrong. With this, a lot of people I know in my world outside of cricket were like, oh, Dharamshala, McLeod to Tibetan architecture, where the Dalai Lama lives, being able to walk the Treon track as I did when I was here in 17. It was such an iconic, it's an iconic venue whenever it is, but a Border Gavaskar Test up there in the middle of the series after the break, it was going to be perfect. So I get why people are angry. What I don't get is, I understand why Australian cricket fans are automatically sceptical and cynical about everything, but there was so much heat around this. The suggestion, which was just laughable, that the test was moved away from Dharamshala and to indoor because Ashwin averages 12 there. I mean, I was at Dharamshala when India beat Australia there in 3 and a bit days 6 years ago. The conditions and the venue have precious little to do with it when India can turn to two of the all-time greatest spinners. And as Bharat explained to me in depth yesterday, the internal politics of the BCCI is such that they would have been mortified at having to move this test away from the home ground of the vice chair, that being up in Dharamshala and the state association that he comes from. So, yeah, I quickly got on Twitter and said, guys, cool your jets. No conspiracy on this one. This is dead set cock up, and I can't believe how they're stuffing this up.
Yeah, I mean, Himachal Pradesh, they want that state association to have high-profile matches up there. That's why they've scheduled Australia there twice in 6 years.
Yeah, Anurag Thakur's home ground. Yeah, like he would have done anything to have that game there. You remember when the West Indies refused to play there? I mean, they didn't refuse to play in Dharamsala. They just said there were some internal issues with their board in 2014, and they wanted to go back home. And Anurag Thakur and his team said, okay, if you don't play this game in Dharamsala, we'll tell all the bus drivers, nobody's driving you back. You can find your own way back to the airport. So that's how much it means for them to play cricket in Dharamsala. They wouldn't have moved it unless they had no option but to move it.
I noticed a comment come up from Anand Gami who says that they should crowdfund our whole trip to the World Cup to have us here. You can do that because we have a Patreon website, patreon.com/thefinalword. And if you go there and join up, that's how it works. It actually helps us. That's how we can afford to come here to India and to travel to the other countries that we do. And if you get there, you can join up and be part of the quiz on our show. So you can feature on the podcast by joining up on Patreon. So if you're just following along and you haven't joined up yet, that's a good thing to do.
So I think we got a comment coming in from the covert Indian who mentions Fox Cricket. Fox Cricket was the one who started this conspiracy about 12.5. And listen, I am thoroughly enjoying everything Fox Cricket is putting out there. It's just adding so much wonderful nonsense to this whole conversation, and I'm all for it. Like it's so much conspiracies. I think the doctoring pitch thing started from them or started from somebody else. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, even if it doesn't start from them, they're the ones who can blow it up. I mean, the website is a troll factory. That's its job, is to get as many clicks as possible by writing inflammatory headlines that are not borne out by the articles. That's the entire business model. So if you click it, then they win. The only thing to do is not click.
Yeah, just to reinforce that point, like this the fact that you're even asking us about the handle on Twitter. I mean, of course, you know, the people that run the Twitter account aren't the commentators that are on Fox Cricket in the summer in Australia. You know, it's completely different. It's about 25 rungs down the ladder is where it'll be. A couple of, I expect, younger people who are commissioned to riling up Indian audiences because there are 1 billion Indian cricket fans. And if, you know, a small percentage of those fans get angered enough to click the link, well, as Geoff says, that's good for business. So you've got to remember how that's being played out.
I also have
a few questions coming up about Adam Zampa as well, and whether Australia are missing a leg spinner, that sort of thing. I mean, we've seen Adam Zampa. He hasn't played a mountain of first-class cricket, but he's one of many spinners in Australia who averages 40+ with the ball in first-class cricket. I mean, Bharat's theory was certainly that if you bring a leg spinner of that quality in a test match to India, then they will just get eaten alive.
No, they would have gone right after him. And Adam Zampa is a very clever bowler, and I feel really bad for him. Like, he hadn't played first-class cricket for over 3 years. In this time, he moved from South Australia to New South Wales, and it's the classic. It's almost very Indian, right? Harry, don't worry. You play 2 matches, we'll take you to India. The poor guy suddenly figures a way to bowl with the red ball again. Plays 2 matches, and they say, you know what, actually we'll take steps in. And then he's still playing first-class cricket with no scope and no future in test cricket. At least it looks like at this point.
Yeah, I think that all tallies. Like, I don't think the Zampa thing was crazy, by the way. But cricketers can improve by playing international cricket, even if it isn't the same format. One of the very first pieces I wrote as a cricket journalist was kind of about this, that Australia in their glory days would use the one-day team to get guys ready to be able to make the step up to the test team, even if it was different format, because the pressure is similar. You know, if you're playing in front of 30,000 people, it's very different to playing a Shield game in front of 300 people. So Zampa did play with an expectation that he could come and play test cricket, despite what Geoff describes as a high bowling average from when he used to play pretty consistently for South Australia. I reckon, even from what we've seen, him playing for New South Wales, he's been good, he's been effective, but there is still a chasm there between, I guess it's muscle memory of bowling over and over again in Shield cricket and coming to India, the toughest place in the world to play and win. And I think, you know, Brad's observation is that they would have gone after him from ball one. And by contrast, Todd Murphy, who has been almost exclusively playing red ball cricket, has rocked up here and looked a star from the get-go. So he's a really exciting prospect. He'll be the guy who overtakes Nathan Lyon, not a wrist spinner. It'll be another finger spinner who they can take around the world, play in Australia, bowl consistently, give the fast bowlers a chance to rest. And, I mean, we've seen one test match from him, right? But it was a very special test match, and it's hard not to draw the conclusion that he's only going to get better.
And there's that fundamental difference between white ball bowling and red ball bowling. You know, if you're a T20 bowler and you have a spell and you bowl 18 dot balls, you've had an incredible day and you've done your job. If you're in a test match and you bowl 18 dot balls or 36 dot balls or 72, that doesn't matter. The other team can just wait. They can just wait you out until you start getting tired and until they can start scoring from you. Like, you have to be able to attack and take wickets in red ball cricket. You don't have to be able to do that in white ball cricket because you can bowl defensively. Players have to attack you anyway. You get your wickets caught on the deep mid-wicket fence, happy days. If they don't have to do that, if they don't have that scoring pressure, they just wait you out, and then they start attacking the bad balls that you deliver, which you will start delivering after a long enough period of time. So that's the fundamental difference. Whenever we see a spinner bowling well in white ball cricket, people think they should play test matches. They have to bowl a completely different style in test matches. And the way that Zampa bowls, he's a masterful defensive leg spinner. He's hard to attack. He's hard to put over the fence, but no one needs to put him over the fence in a test match.
I got to ask you this. So in the post-match, Ravindra Jadeja said something really funny where he said in Hindi to everybody, where he said, I think the Australians were thinking about the pitch even on the flight. Like, they were seeing the pitch even on the flight, and they were dreaming about the pitch even on the flight. And I was like, that's probably true. And also, did that dictate, Travis Head's record in Asia has not been great, etc. So all this comment about him playing versus Bancroft or what's the other guy? I forgot his name. Whoever the other.
Renshaw.
Yeah, Renshaw. So, do you think now, after the first test, one of them has his place in danger, and do you think it will change much? Because also Travis said the other thing that he contributed quite well was as an off spinner, where he essentially just won that match against Sri Lanka. And but now there's already 2 off spinners. So how many off spinners can you get on the side?
Oh well, have a whole 11. Why not? Bharat is the number 1 Travis Head watcher in the world. He goes to South Australian Sheffield Shield nets. He's been to like every game Travis Head has played in the last 5 years. So you can go this way.
Yeah, I also go and watch South Australia, the team run around in June when the nets aren't ready. And then apparently Callum Ferguson told me the first time, Callum has known me for a while. So the first time I went and did that, a lot of the other players were like, man, who's that guy who's just watching us run around? And Callum had to tell them, no, it's safe. He's actually a journalist. He's weirdly interested in what we do, but he's just safe. But one thing about Travis Head, I'll say, is Adam and I bumped into him recently, and I noticed that he's growing his mustache again. And I reminded him that the last time he had a mustache, he made a comeback to the Australian side and hit 100 at Gabba Test last year. And what did he say, Adam? He said that, yeah, I'm putting those feelers in. So maybe there is something in there with the mustache. And I looked at his mustache today again. It's looking lusher by the day.
I love that. He's trying to manifest a spot in the test side on the back of his bushy mustache, which is nice.
Yeah.
Trav's a really lovely. I was going to call him a kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's probably 28, 29, something like that. So you wouldn't call him a young player anymore, but he is kind of youthful in the way he communicates with you. He's really difficult not to like as a human being. So when he rolled up and spoke to Baz and me yesterday, I partly wanted to give him a little hug and say, it's going to be all right, mate. You're going to play a lot. And I think he knows that, right? He knows objectively that in Australia, when you're out of the test side, you are automatically a better player. The rest of Australia go, he should be in the team. He's a bloody star. And the fact that Head performed so wonderfully during the home summer against the Windies and South Africa certainly helps with that in the Ashes last year. But, yeah, that mustache might be what puts it all together. But you're right as well. That Jadeja comment about the pitches and flying over could not be more true. I've just finished writing about this for Wisdom Cricket Monthly. Like, Australia's relationship with winning in India is akin to England's relationship with winning in Australia. And by that I mean we obsess over it for years and years and years. How do we win in India? How do we win in India? Exactly the same way that England do about winning in Australia. All these plans and all these hypotheticals and all these scenarios and all these debates around that would never happen if not for this particular series. And invariably you rock up here and you're outplayed on skill in the first test match. And, you know, that Mike Tyson quote that always does the rounds, that everyone's got a plan until they get a punch in the face. Well, there's a reason why everyone reached for that on commentary and in their articles the other day, because it's kind of true. Australia had a plan, but India have got Ashwin and Jadeja, and it wouldn't matter what surface they're playing on. When it's at home, they build so much pressure. They're 2 of the all-time greats.
And if I can pick up on a comment that came in from Sugata Mukherjee asking, why don't we just fly an Indian pitch across to Australia, pop it in there and let them practice on it until they learn how to play spin? And in a way, that's a great idea. Like, and you can make similar sort of pitches. You can rough them up. You can create turning wickets. I think the difference is in the quality of the bowling, right? So we saw Australia and India bowl on the same pitch. We saw that great performance from Murphy, but still struggled towards the end, still got clubbed for 4 sixes, still gave away 100+ runs in so doing. Didn't get the support from elsewhere. I mean, Lyon created more chances that were missed and could have had more wickets and so on. But even if they bowled out India for 100 less, they would probably have still lost by an innings, given the fact that they could not figure out a way to bat on that surface. It didn't matter that it was the third day; they were just as bad on the first day, really. So it's the way that you use that pitch, and it's the way that Ashwin and Jadeja use that pitch. So it's not the surface itself; it's the quality of the bowling on that surface to hit exactly the right length, to know how to make use of it, to know how to get inside players' heads on that surface. So Australia batters could face Australian bowlers on that day 3 pitch for 5 years, and they still wouldn't learn how to adequately bat against Indian bowlers on that pitch.
It's analogous to what we were talking about earlier with big willies. I mean, it's all good to have one. You've got to know how to use it. And India have got it doesn't matter what the surface is. I don't know if those two are pack and heat, but they certainly.
Hey, listen, I like how you mentioned anal and big willies in the same sentence. I don't know why that's what I'm picking up on. By the way, we have the first couple of super chats popping in. And also just to tell everybody who's tuning in, just give likes, because the more likes you come, the more people tune in. It just makes things more fun and more interesting. We have a super chat coming in from Susmit Takavekar, who's come in before. How are you doing, man? He says, has DK elevated commentary standards single-handedly? I mean, that's a lot to put on one guy. I think overall the commentary's been a lot of fun as an Indian fan. I don't know what do you think about it in general as Australians. I've enjoyed Ravi Shastri trolling Hayden just about everything.
Well, so we've had DK working with us on ABC Radio for the first test match. He's doing the whole series. He's never done radio before, and I can tell you that he's loving that because he gets room to express himself. The difference between radio commentary and TV commentary is the lack of ad breaks. It gives you more time, and you do more talking anyway. You fill the space more. And I mean, it's a real shame that radio commentary has stopped being a thing in India, that there isn't really audio commentary to listen to, because it's very different commentary. It's not just reacting to the shot. If you're a TV commentator, you go, good shot there, that'll be 4, and that's it. Whereas on radio, you talk shit, you have conversations, you go on byways and you meander off. And, I mean, Adam, you and I have done both jobs at different times, and it's no secret that we vastly prefer doing radio commentary because it gives us that space. Yeah, absolutely. I guess my first passion in commentary was radio. I really enjoy doing television as well, and I'll explain why. Because with TV, it's a privilege to work with Sky Sports occasionally in the UK. You hit the button, talk to the director, and you can ask with Sky anyway, go, right, can I please have, the Hawkeye on the last 3 balls of that over, that ball from 4 overs ago, and can you compare it to a clip from 2016? If you have enough memory and knowledge of what's gone on, you can pull together brilliant packages and tell a story graphically, of course, that you can't do on radio in the absence of that. But you're right. TV is all about shutting up. And I think a lot of television commentators have failed to appreciate that you are adding to the pictures, you're not describing the pictures. And I think it's a occupational hazard to just keep talking on TV when the best thing you can do a lot of the time is to say nothing, or to continue the conversation you're having with someone next to you that might have played 100 test matches. You don't need to spend the whole time talking about what the viewer can already see. By contrast, on radio, you're painting with a canvas of, say, 200 metres by 200 metres or thereabouts, and you've got more space between balls. You've got that discipline of needing to call each ball, the load up, the delivery, what's happened to the ball, the score, the batter's score, etc. But once that's all done, like Bharat and I do a lot of commentary together on SEN radio. Geoff and I are on different networks for this series, and we have other experts, Harsha Bogle joining us this week, Ravi Shastri on our show as well. And they've done so much radio that you get them going, and it's a completely different experience to TV, where they are limited in what they can say, because end of the over, and indeed even inside overs in some broadcasts, are off to an ad. So, and I'm not saying advertising is inherently a bad thing, far from it, but it does give you far more latitude. And I'm glad to hear DK's enjoying it, because I agree with your questioner there that he's been great on telly. Remember that he only got to start doing it when there was the pandemic series between India and England. Well, I say the pandemic series, the behind closed doors white ball series a couple of years ago, and they used DK. He was a bit of a left field decision on English television, and a combination of his dress sense and his analysis and his humour turned him into a big television commentary name
within weeks, and now he's obviously on all the ICC panels and ubiquitous across the broadcasting platforms in India and beyond.
He also seems to come very fresh because he's just come he's still playing cricket, and so he comes from a completely and it's also kind of interesting to see him. I think so many Indian cricketers who used to play with Haydos and all these people have just been waiting for an opportunity to troll him. So this is like, listen, man, you reverse swept us to whatever those 9 double centuries in one series. Now it's our turn. Haydos just has to take it. So it's I think that's an absolute joy. I got to ask you about one of the most subtle sort of competitions that is happening in this series is the bowling averages of Scott Boland versus Akshar Patel. Right, one average is about 12, and one average is like 4. I think I was getting scared because Akshar almost went over 15. Which honestly, I think all 4 of us can agree that that's a horrible average. If you average above 15 in international cricket, you're a piece of shit. I think we can all agree on that.
Get rid of him. Never to play again. And if there are ever like 4 people who are more obsessively interested in players' bowling averages after small sample size careers, this is the hot spot. I mean, we have spent more time talking about Scott Boland than Scott Boland in his entire lifetime. We're obsessed with him.
What I love with Scott Boland, well, certainly in his first series playing for Australia, was his competition with Father Marriott. Father Marriott played 1 Test match for England in 1932. I'm pretty sure he became a father, a member of the clergy, a priest, years later. But he wrote one of the definitive books about leg spin, which Mike Atherton read when he was a kid, when he was learning how to bowl leg spin, as it happens. But I think his bowling average was 8.64. He took 11 wickets in that one and only Test match. Unlucky to get dropped after that, I'd say, but that says more about interwar cricket in England than anything else. But Boland, every time his average went above Marriott, it went beneath it again for about 3 Test matches, and then it was double figures, and now it's kind of losing its novelty, I reckon, Geoff. Like, he had a normal Test match in Melbourne where he took like 3 wickets and had perfectly acceptable figures, but it blew out his average. And of course, he was wicketless, albeit in a really good performance last week.
Yeah, I mean, he conceded 9 runs of his first 10 overs in Nagpur, so he was still on that tip. If he'd taken another wicket, then he would have, sent that average backwards again. But yeah, I mean, what he's like mid 11s or maybe a 12 or so now. So.
Yeah, he might have a 12 or a 13 in front of it, but if he Scott Boland's not going to enjoy a really long international career because he's like 34, right? So it might be a bit like Adam Bojus, who came into the Test side when he was 35, 36. At one point, after 20 Test innings, so when Cricinfo declared he was having a batting average, in that 20th innings, his average was above 100. So had he retired then and there, he would have overtaken Don Bradman. Unfortunately, the last 5 Test matches of his career, it dropped down to like 61 or something like that. But when you start late and start well, it can mean you can retire with extraordinary numbers. And I suspect Boland will do so because in England, where he will play at the start of the Ashes series later this year, he looks born to bowl on surfaces that are going to be dished up over there, that's for sure.
Can I address a question that I saw pop up from Michael Holden, which said, basically, would it be a bad thing for home boards to be a bit more hospitable in terms of helping preparation? So we've seen this with Australia and England. For instance, Australia would go to England for the Ashes. They'd ask for a warm-up game, and they would be given the bottom 3 sides in the 2nd division of the county championship, who would all rest their best bowlers because they needed to play a match 2 days later. So the quality of the opposition was poor. They'd be given a road to bat on, so it wouldn't be seaming around. Basically deliberately undermining the quality of the preparation. And the argument here is that don't cricket boards actually want a competitive series? Isn't it better? Isn't it easier to sell a competitive series though? Like, if you're a board, your job is to you're trying to make money, right? And yeah, you want your team to win, but you also more people are going to tune in, more people will buy tickets and so on if it's a close series and it's still on the line heading into the last Test match, as opposed to if it's an absolute pasting like we often see in an Australian summer, or like we're probably going to see over the next 3 weeks or so here.
Yeah, and not in India. In India, they just want to crush the opposition, right? And people will still come, right? People will come if Virat Kohli is batting or Rohit Sharma is batting, or these days even like the cheers for Surya Kumar Yadav around Nagpur. Nobody would have guessed that he was making his Test debut. I know he's made a name for himself in the other formats, but it works differently in India. Like, Indians rejoice in bad defeats where there's this quiet thing of now India is the worst team in the world, or they want the opposition to be crushed. I don't think we like competitive cricket or competitive series as a whole. I'm sure some of us do. But as a whole, Saurabh, you'll agree that the critical mass would just want Australia to be crushed, to be humiliated. Because a lot of them are Indians who grew up in an era where Australia would do that to India over there, where Jayawant Tele would say, I'm the board secretary, I'm predicting India will lose 3-0 and India will still lose 3-0. MSK Prasad will be clean bowled by a full toss by Brett Lee. And, Devang Gandhi and MSK Prasad would be your opening combination at the MCG. So we've seen those horrid days, and now it's payback, and this payback has to go on for quite a while for Indians to be.
I think the only
Prasad opening the batting in Glenn McGrath. In Mark Waugh's 100th Test match in Glenn McGrath, getting him out in the second over, I think it was. Brad, this happened to India when they came to Australia. They barely fired a shot until recently. Well, of course, with the exception of 03-04, which was a marvellous performance where they drew 1-1. So, yeah, I agree. I think most fans don't care for the competitive tension. I think we're probably the exception to the rule there.
I think Indian fans, the only competition we want to see is between Surya Kumar Yadav and Shreyas Iyer for being in the side. That's all we want. And the competition we want is whether we'll win 4-0 or 3-0. Just for rain. That's all we want.
Well, if they win 3-0, if they win 3-1 or 3-0 with a draw, it guarantees they'll play each other again at the Oval in the World Test Championship final in June. That is the only combination that absolutely guarantees it, 3-1 or 3-0 with a draw. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. India might thrash Australia and they could go to the Oval in different conditions. And I mean, imagine India lose another World Test Championship final in England.
By far the funniest outcome. By far the funniest thing that could happen.
It's a funny outcome.
India win 4-0 here and then lose to Australia in the World Test Championship.
There'll be no more World Test Championship. The BCCI will say no more.
Yeah, they'll take all the sand from Dharamsala and put it in Lords. They're like, you know what, no more. This is over. This is done. Nothing again.
Well, we talked earlier about flying an Indian pitch across the world. They might do that. They'll say, sure, you can play it at Lords, you can play it at the Oval, but we're bringing our own surface. Yeah, no worries at all.
India's airlifting the whole Ahmedabad stadium with the spectators inside it. It'll basically be the longest flight in the world with 40,000 Indians flying across the thing. By the way, have another super chat popping in from Naveen Sai. Thanks a lot for your super chat. He says, will there be a final word, Great Cricketer podcast?
Maybe.
Well, I'm
just going to say, we cannot confirm or deny, but we're just going to say maybe.
Yeah, I was out with Sam last night and we did talk about this. So they're only in Delhi, here for 2 more days after this, I think I'm right in saying. Day 1 and day 2. They're doing live shows on night 1 and night 2, so we're going to have to get creative. But if we can, we will. We've both been on their show quite a lot over the years. Well, certainly early on, I used to go on there quite a bit when they were starting their podcast. So we're all mates, and I'm a regular listener to their show, and we're always in close contact. So if we can do something together, we'd like to.
I'm not a fan because I heard that they sold out the entire shows all across the country. Whereas I'm getting about 40% ticket sales for my shows. So I just want to put this out there that the Great Cricketer can go fuck themselves.
They probably enjoy that and take that as something. Yeah. So
no, listen, the very funny people, please go. I mean, it's going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, sorry, please go.
There's something that matches what you said about that competitive Indian spirit. Any Indian side only wants to thrash the opposition. You're like, I cannot stand by while other people have full attendances at their shows. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, but how dare you make money? How dare you make money on the basis of your success? How dare you make well-earned money? This is like being consistent for years and years, and you finally broke through. By the way, I want to do something right at the end. I think we'll go for about 10 minutes more. Is that okay for all of you?
Yep, that works.
Okay. I got to ask you a question, Bharat, which is that, you know what? I was imagining you trying to do a sting operation and how tough it would be, because there's no way you're going to be like, yeah, it's like, hey, this guy wearing a really bright floral shirt with gorgeous hair and hairy legs or whatever it is, just snuck in and did something.
The other day, someone on Twitter said, posted some picture. He said that your clothes look like curtains in my mother's house. It looks like you've stolen the curtains from my mother's house and stitched clothes out of it. Which means that at least in that person's house, I can camouflage myself and fit in. I can be part of the furniture or the decor of the house. But, no, I will be very bad at sting operations. I have this honesty issue. I'll tell them, sir, actually, you know what, I do have a recorder. And also the problem will be I'll do most of the talking. So it'll be a sting on myself.
Yeah. Hey, so I got to ask you about the experience so far watching the match in Nagpur, because I've seen 3 matches in the recent past in Mumbai, and DY Patil was a lot of fun, Brabon was a lot of fun, and then I went to Wankhede with my son and had a nightmare of a time. Like, it was literally like it's an accident waiting to happen. They had one gate to allow 25,000 spectators to get inside through a pothole road without any lighting and people just crushing through, and I was with a 7-year-old. It was legitimately scary shit. So I would love to know what your experience has been like watching the matches so far.
Well, I think for people like us, we always have a different experience because we have this incredible privilege of being able to show up with a media pass and be let in a specific entrance and bring our equipment and our bags and things in. And yeah, sometimes it's difficult and you get hassled and you get searched and it's annoying, but it's never more than that. But I cannot get my head around how the authorities at Indian grounds care so little about the spectators, show so little custodial care for the people who are supposed to be welcomed with hospitality, right? If you run a venue, you're inviting people in, and you show up to a ground, even in Nagpur, the signs all around the ground, no food, no water, no, like they're taking away bottles of hand sanitizer from people, packets of tissues from people, like absolute nonsense stuff that you can't take anything into a ground when you're going to then go and sit in the sun for 8 hours and you can't bring anything with you that might help make that stay more tolerable, more like it's physically unsafe to make people go and sit in the ground for that time.
It's arbitrary as well. Like, I get it if it was like no firearms, right? Like, I get that, but no water. I'm not saying it necessarily was water, but what you're listing
it literally was on no bottles of water. You can't take a bottle of water and you can't take a sandwich.
And today, looking at the Kotla Stadium that we're going to be at for the next 5 days, the Bishan Bedi stand doesn't have a roof on it. How's it possible? And I don't think the stand on the other side of the ground as well has one either. How can you have a grandstand in 2023 that at some stage hasn't had a roof put on top of it just to look after your spectators? And look, I'm charmed by the old-fashioned nature of some of the cricket grounds in India. I love the Chinnaswamy when it's like there's little rat warrens, you're kind of moving from one stand to the other and they're all kind of interconnected, kind of sort of without really being connected, and you find your way around. Like, I love all of that. I loved last year being at the National Stadium in Karachi with the old-fashioned concrete seating and the colourful seating bays. Like, we don't get that in Australia anymore because at one stage or another, they've been homogenised by having, very modern stadiums installed, and that's great on one hand, but you do lose something on the flip side of that. So,
sure.
I share Geoff's view about the way in which patrons arbitrarily seem to be treated poorly here, but equally, I'm naturally drawn to grounds like this as opposed to the ones where I spend most of my time.
Well, in their defense about the food stuff, right? I fully defend them on that because we have a history of throwing stuff on players. I've seen that happen quite a lot. Where we just need any
kid as well in Melbourne at the MCG at Bay 13 when I was growing up. It was it was part of the day to throw whatever you got in your hand, you throw it up during the Mexican wave, and where it lands, it lands. Now, in hindsight, as an adult, I've realised that was pretty bloody stupid. But as a kid, getting a chocolate cake and heaving it in the air in the middle of the Mexican wave, there was nothing more enjoyable.
I still think it is entirely easy enough to have proper security at a ground to pick people up who throw things and kick them out. I mean, we managed to do that at our own stadiums. You can't throw anything without being spotted on a camera and thrown out. And if that's the case, then fine. But that doesn't mean that, a family with 3 small children shouldn't be able to take a bottle of water in for an 8-hour day. It's genuinely absurd.
One of my favorite incidents that happened, I took my son to see one of the IPL matches at DY Patil, and we were sitting in the lower stand and there was an up stand. And there was a guy, you know how you try to get a chant going about like whatever, a year, nobody ka year, whatever, they do something. There's a guy who's just screaming, vodka! Vodka! He's screaming vodka for 15 minutes, okay? And then he takes off his shirt in overexcitement because obviously he's had a lot of that vodka. And he throws it, right? And he throws it and it lands in our stand. And the security is like, hey, put on your shirt. But he's like, it's down. So for 1.5 hours, this guy's just standing there topless, screaming vodka for no reason. I'm trying to explain to my son that this is what you
Sounds like
watch
great
me
company.
anyway.
Yeah. Sounds like
Yeah.
my 21st birthday.
Yeah. It sounds
Now,
like a
next
great
time,
start.
make sure you don't take your shirt off, Sorabh.
Listen, I tried. I prefer gin. I would have been screaming, gin! Take up
Possibly
everything.
with a slice of lime. A delicious slice of lime.
I tried to get a chant going, which is about Ishan Kishan, man on a mission, and nobody followed me. They're like, no, we're not interested in starting a new chant. Instead, they'll scream, which is the favorite chant of everybody, which is Chalti Firti Taxi, and then Bharat will tell you the rest.
Oh yeah? What happens after that?
No, wait, this is new. I'm
You
still
know-
in the old Bankade chant area where generally it was talk of Pakistan and Benazir Bhutto. I'm not going to say what they used to say about those
Yeah.
two. Yeah. I don't know what this Chalti Fitting. I'll tell you this though
Yeah.
about being stopped at outside grounds for carrying things that you don't need inside a cricket stadium. In Nagpur 2010, there was a test match and the security stopped me. I was trying to enter to go into the press box. They said, "Sir, you're not allowed to take this. It's a packet of condoms." And I said, like, why? I don't know why they were there in the first place, but he said, no, sir, you can't take this inside. And it became a major thing. And eventually the head cop came and then they finally let me take it inside. That also happened to be the day where the Pope officially said safe sex is a good thing. So, I was doing the right thing. And then eventually I remember there was another time that we were in the Caribbean in 2011 when by then this news had spread around the Indian team. If you ever need a condom, Bharat always has a condom. So I had I remember one day Harbhajan Singh came up to me not asking for a condom. He said, "But do you still have some?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, next week's my birthday. I can't find any balloons. Maybe you can bring them and we can have a little celebration. We can use them as balloons." So yeah, so I don't know. I don't know whether you agree whether condoms should be allowed into cricket.
No, surely you have to explain to a security guard that condoms are meant to be taken inside. That's what they're for.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but also like my question as a security guard would be like, hey Bharat, what are you planning to do with the condoms inside the stadium? That's going to be the question that they'll ask because they assume that anything that you carry inside is going to be used there.
True, yeah, or maybe chucked at a player. Like imagine, if you're so pissed off with what's happening, that
Where, like
or
a just
if you're
giant
enjoying it so much, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, let's come to the second test because we have 2 days left. What do you think is going to happen? You've seen the pitches, you've observed them from afar. We already discussed that you don't know how it's going to play eventually, but what do you think? Are there going to be any changes from Australia? I'm sure there's going to be something. I assume Boland is not going to play, and then there's probably going to be a change between Renshaw, I guess. What do you think is going to be the Australian?
I didn't expect that. We'll do it quickly, shall we? I reckon that the fact that Mitchell Starc was bowling at full pace today and that Cameron Green batted for a long time would suggest they've actually got some good decisions they've got to make. If Green's fit, that means they can get away with playing Cummins and Green alone and 3 spinners. Now, that would be really interesting. Australia haven't done that since, it would have been 2017 in Bangladesh at Chittagong. It's a long, long time ago, right? They don't like doing it, but if the surface does lend itself to spin from the get-go, I guess why would they bother needing a second seamer? It could be like Mohammad Siraj, who bowled 1 over in the second dig last week and 7 overs in the first. He's like a specialist second seamer in India where he barely bowls. He's got an average of 16 at home in 7 test matches, but he's only taken 7 wickets because he's barely required. So, but on the other hand, Mitchell Starc has been Australia's best bowler in these conditions historically. So there'll be a temptation to go that way. As for the batting, if Green plays, then it'll be at the expense of Renshaw. If he doesn't, I don't think they will bring Travis Head in. Brad's got a better handle on this than I do, but just the gut feel is that they're in. I don't think it's likely that they would sack a player like Renshaw after 1 test match. That would be a concession that they stuffed up last week by not playing Head. Now, I would have played Head last week, but put that to one side. Now they've made the call. I think they're kind of duty bound to back Renshaw, who did play 7 test matches in Asia as a younger man, and if they go 2-0 down, it'll all bets are off. But yeah, my thinking would be that Renshaw gets another chance. Unless Green's available, then they'll change the configuration. And it won't be so much that Renshaw's dropped as much as it is that he's rotated out of the side to have that extra bowling option in Green.
Oh, look, I have the sneaky feeling about Matthew Kuhneman that he might play. And if he plays, but he only plays, like Adam said, if Cam Green is fit and he's bowling, even if he gives just 3 or 4 overs. Now, Cam Green, like, it's amazing, right? 2.5 years or 1.5 years of becoming an international cricketer, he's become such a vital cog that literally all of Australia's plans going forward rest on him. If he plays, their options, right? They can play the 3 spinners or they can still bring Mitchell Stark in. So I think Cam Green has become more important than Mitchell Stark in the current scenario. And Adam's right. I don't see them dropping Renshaw because don't forget, it's not Renshaw who replaced Head. It was Hanscom who replaced Head because I think maybe they felt that they needed a right-hander. So if anyone has to go, it's Hanscom, but Hanscom batted well in the first inning. So I don't see our good mate Trav coming to the side yet, mustache or no mustache. And I think this whole talk of Warner being replaced by Head might happen down the line, but not so soon. I think they need David Warner, and David Warner was giving every Australian he met like suggestions on where to go for like for a drink or for dinner. He feels so much at home in Delhi. He was even wondering if him and I should go and watch the ISL today. Next door. I didn't quite get that, but he knew there was a game at 3:45 ISL, of course, Indian Super League. The soccer tournament here. But I think it rests on that. If Cam Green plays, he faced a few balls where every time the ball hit the middle of the bat, you could see him wince in pain. But I still think a 70% fit Cam Green will make it through. If that happens, I have a strong feeling that they'll play the third spinner.
I think if they're dropping Warner, they should wait till they play in Hyderabad. Like, I think that would really annoy a lot of people. That would be significantly funny where you just wait till there and then Sunrise is
Hyderabad. Give him a chance
management
to retire in his own terms. I think Warner's a pretty savvy dude. Like, spent enough time with him over the years. I don't think it'll ever get to the point where they drop him. I think he will be smart enough to know at 5 minutes to midnight that it's time to call a press conference. Whether that's in 2 weeks or in 2 months or in 9 months, he'll pick his own moment, and he deserves to because he's been an all-time great, David Warner. So I know some people are death riding him, and they'd like to see Travis Head opening, but he's earned the right to make his call, and I think he's smart enough to know when the right time is.
I'd love to know what all three of you think about this David Warner captaincy ban just before we pop out, because I know it's a lot being said, and I think you put out a video about it as well. But I just genuinely love to know because it seemed like they just basically made sure that, it's not happening.
Well, it wasn't exactly like that. It was more that Cricket Australia had to distance themselves from the process. So when he wanted to appeal the decision, they couldn't be seen to be just making an expedient decision themselves to allow the appeal and then to rule in favour of the appeal. So they put together an independent panel, which consisted of some very, very eminent lawyers who were very good at their jobs. And that panel said, okay, well, if you want to argue for a change of the penalty, then you need to walk us through everything that happened from the beginning, and you need to show contrition for it. And that's the thing that Warner hasn't really done. He's accepted responsibility and accepted the ban, but he's never really demonstrated that he was particularly sorry for what happened. And he wasn't prepared to do that because he didn't want to go through it all again publicly. So that was his choice. He had the opportunity if he wanted to do it. And look, I didn't have a problem with the fact that leadership ban was for life because he compromised the career of a junior teammate. And I don't think that's something you can come back from as a leader. Other people don't agree with that. One of them was probably sitting next to me, but that was my take on it.
Yeah, I thought that it was. It's like I used to work in politics, and you never send something off to an independent review unless you know what the independent review is going to say. And they wanted David Warner to be reinstated as a leader because of the Big Bash. Not really about the Aussie team. It was about the Big Bash, right? Because of the eyeball power that he brings. He played anyway, and I don't think he should have, as it happens. He's done himself a mischief in terms of running around playing T20 cricket immediately before this series when he should have been having a holiday on the Gold Coast or something like that. Anyway, be that as it may, it was a process set up to get an outcome, and then they didn't control the process, which sometimes happens when things get away from administrators. And my sense is that Warner has a story to tell about what happened in that dressing room in Newlands, and he's not going to do it while he's playing. He probably won't do it when any of the guys who are involved that day are still playing cricket, but one day he'll tell the wider story, and Usman Khawaja's hinted at that story himself, and it'll all come out. It always does. These things never remain secret forever. And that probably goes to what Geoff's saying there about not wanting to show complete contrition for what happened, because he will, I suspect, tell a story that's far more elaborate than, I just had an idea one day to tell Cameron Bancroft to do this thing. It'll have more texture and depth to it than that. And he wants to provide himself the freedom to tell that story when this is all over for him and the guys who are in Cape Town that week.
Or a sting operation. I think those are the two options.
Or a sting operation. Or a sting. And look, and Davey is Brad, you'd agree with this. He would be the type of guy who could get stuck in a sting operation, because he's the type of guy, when you get him going and get him talking, he just tells you what he reckons. He doesn't kind of hide things. If he was sitting here with us on the couch right now on this YouTube live with us, he would just tell you probably whatever you wanted to know about, because he's a pretty open book, right? If someone got him sat down, slouched on a sofa where we started today, they would probably get a great exclusive. But I hope they don't do it that way. I hope he gets to do it on his own terms.
Okay, last question. What do you think about the Indian side? You think they're going to play 5 pacers, just go with their strengths, play full pace attack?
I hope so. Let's make it a pink ball test, and then they can play 4 quicks like England, and we'll see how that turns out. Yeah, I mean, look, India don't need to change anything. I think Shreyas Iyer might be coming in for SKY. That seems to be what's being hinted at, but that's more a incumbency in the team sort of situation. Aside from that, why would they bother changing anything?
My dream sequence is that SKY play. It's a improbable as this is, 1-1 going to Ahmedabad. They've called Glenn Maxwell into the squad earlier because he's here for the one day. So they call him out over early. And I basically know cricket. Maxwell we need a match winner. We need a guy who can do it in India. We're turning to Maxi. And India go, oh, we need a match winner as well. SKY it is. Maxwell versus Surya Kumar Yadav. 4th test match. Ahmedabad. The Australian Prime Minister's going to be there. Modi's going to be there. All hell's going to break loose. There'll be 80,000 people there deciding who wins the Border Gavaskar, and the two will go head to head. So that's my only foreshadowing of selection later in the series.
Maxi hits a 6 and Anthony Albanese takes the catch in the grandstand. That's how we see it finishing.
That's the ideal thing. Okay, I want to do one last.
But it'll be they ended that 4 if
I want to do one last thing before we leave. Okay, now the Great Cricketer guys made it really viral because they did this reaction to the Gabba loss. So I'd love to reverse engineer this. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 possible results, and I would love for all 3 of you to just react to it. Okay, the first one is obviously a positive one, where Australia has won the match, and they won the match by like innings and 10 wickets. They've done something which nobody's ever achieved in life: an innings and 10 wickets in the same match. So I'd love to see your reaction. Here is Aussies reacting to Australia. Amazing win in Delhi. Yeah.
Honestly, if it's us, I mean, we've seen Australia win at the Gabba so many times that it causes nothing to happen in my brain or my body.
Well, you probably over the years covering Australian cricket and just generally being a grown up, I've lost that fervour. If they win or lose, I don't mind so much. It's kind of the storylines and the players. So. I'm probably a bad one for that. I think Geoff is as well. I don't know, Bharat, how would you feel if Australia? He's probably the better one given his extraction and the fact that he's applying for citizenship in Australia at the moment. Well, actually, he might be the one most compromised.
Actually, I mean, and Bharat used to get beaten up by his brother because he went for the West Indies instead of India when he was a kid. Yeah. So none of us are actually very passionate about supporting the teams of the countries of our birth.
Yeah, and especially if Australia had won that Gabba test, I'll have no book to sell. Yeah, so I'm very happy that didn't happen. So,
I still have people come up to me about the live show I did with Harsha that night, and I had one guy come up last week and say, "I've watched it 100 times. I've watched it 100 times, you and Harsha, from the video you did that night at the Gabba." I'm like, man, I don't remember doing it. I know it was long. I know we were quite lyrical and quite emotional. Yes, I appreciate the passion of fandom. I have it for my football club. In Australian rules footy, I get where it comes from. It's probably just that I've got a healthy kind of dispassionate approach to it these days as a journalist.
Yeah, and I remember
there you have it, a crazy response by Australians losing their goddamn mind. They cannot believe this win.
Look, when we watched that win at the Gabba, I mean, I felt great because I'd just seen something amazing. I'd seen a team pull off a run chase of the size that doesn't normally happen anywhere, and I'd seen it happen to break that hoodoo at the ground. I'd seen Shubman Gill play this silky, gorgeous innings. I'd seen Pujara do that Pujara doggedness thing, just dig in there and get hit a whole bunch of times and not get out. And then I'd seen Rishabh Pant and Washington Sundar play in that breezy, fun, sort of natural way. And I mean, it was just fun. I didn't give a shit who won. Like, I just wanted to watch the match.
You know, I've still not seen the highlights. I've kept it for a day when I'm at my lowest ebb, where like I'm about to jump off a roof and I'm just going to watch the highlights and say, life is worth living.
Yeah. watch our show. We did a daily show after that game, me and Adam, and it's like it's close to the most excited we've ever been recording a daily.
Wow.
That one, the 2019 World Cup final, and the end of the Headingley Test in the Ashes in 2019. You know, and so none of those involved Australia winning a game. 2 of them involved Australia losing a game, but those were the episodes when we were at our most fired up.
Yeah, and this is what sometimes, I don't want to finish on a too serious note, but where I sometimes get a bit frustrated with world cricket. Like I want to see Test cricket survive with lots of teams playing it for decades, and I fear sometimes that the proliferation of T20 leagues and their ownership structure jeopardises that, and I don't think that's a good thing, even if it does mean that India will have complete control over all cricket. And the truth is, India does already control world cricket. Absolutely. 80 cents in every dollar in world cricket somehow relates to India. So I understand the financial imperative, but hopefully the bigger picture is appreciated by those who have the ability to ensure that Test cricket still has a place, not only for the big 3, but for the 12 nations who currently are able to play it, and maybe more in the future as well.
Yeah, and Zimbabwe drew a test against West Indies, which is considered a win. I thought that was quite impressive. Okay, thank you for everybody tuning in. Thanks so much for your time. Final word, again, subscribe. I put all the details in the description. If you'd like to subscribe to Final Word, follow Bharat on Twitter, Geoff Adam as well. And I have a bunch of shows coming up in Hyderabad, Calcutta, Goa, Bangalore. Again, ticket details are there. I also have a Telegram channel, so get on that because I talk nonsense there. And follow us everywhere. And if you want to sponsor either of us, get us in touch and give us money. What we want is cash.
If you want to sponsor the Final Word, we're just about to do another round of sponsorship. So if you're listening or watching this and you want to have your brand associated with Geoff and me and Bharat and others, this is a great time to get in touch. finalwordcricket@gmail.com.
Done. And I'm pantonfirecomedy@gmail.com. Wow, we're still using Gmail, guys. Anyway, looking forward to the second test. It's going to be a rollicking time. Thanks for your time, Adam, Geoff, and of course, Bharat Sundaresan. Thanks a lot. We should end this live. And thanks for everybody who tuned in. A lot of comments about the women's T20, which we'll come to at some stage as well, which is very exciting. Superb. I'm going to end this. Thanks a lot for everybody tuning in. Love you all. Marry us all. Goodbye. How do we end this now? First time. How do we end this? Oh, there you go. End the stream. Bye.